Hello, everybody. We are live for another episode, a special episode of the Visto Show. Thank you very much for tuning in. It is Friday, February 28th, if I pronounced it as it's spelt, of course. And it's a special episode of the Visto Show. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're live with me on LinkedIn, or maybe after the fact with me on LinkedIn, thank you very much. If you are watching after the fact on YouTube, thank you very much as well, but just know that you're missing out, because if you tuned in live on LinkedIn, you could take part in this conversation. If you are tuning in live, feel free to say hello, feel free to jump in the chat, let me know that you can see me, you can hear me, all that stuff is working well, and thank you for taking some time out of your Friday, or if you're watching this in the future, whatever the heck day you're watching this on, with me. Now, this is going to be a very special episode. As most of you know, usually what I do on the Visto Show is I talk about recent Canadian immigration news, updates, all that kind of stuff. And that stuff's super fun and super important and blah, blah, blah. But I've been so amped up about AI and some of the tools I've been using and talking to a lot of the firms that we work with about AI, and some of them even the basics, that I said, you know what? This just needs to happen, wherein what I want to do is talk about some of the AI tools that I've been using and show you how I'm using them. Maybe it'll give you some ideas. Maybe you're brand new to AI, you don't know a thing about it, and you just want to see how it works and a lot of the basics, etc. Maybe you've been using it, but you want some inspiration, or maybe you want to see some different tools you haven't tried yet, or you just want to see how other people are using it to give you some ideas. So what I plan on doing on this episode, not going to be super long, maybe 15, 20, 25 minutes, is I'm going to take you through 6 to 7-ish of the tools that I've been using over the last few months regarding AI, show you what they are, show you how I'm using them, show you the basics of how they work. If you have any questions, right, again, so one of the advantages of tuning in live on LinkedIn is if you have any questions, if you want me to dive deeper into some of these tools, feel free to throw a question in the comments and I will apply it as well. And then obviously Q&A at the end if there's anybody who has questions and stuff like that. So anyways, I'm going to share my screen after taking my patented Segway sip. Oops, I hit the mic with the cup. That's not a good thing. Patented Segway sip, and we're going to start off with probably the most quote-unquote tried and true popular, not saying the best, but probably the most popular well-known AI tool out there, ChatGPT, right? So hopefully you can see my screen here. And again, nothing fancy per se, but I'm going to highlight some of the basics for those of you who are brand new, and show you some ways that I'm using it, and then if you have any questions, etc., etc. Now, the way ChatGPT works, and some of the first couple tools I'm going to review quickly, like Claude and Grok, is they are basically chatbots, right? So you pull it up and you'll see, like I'm going to show you Claude as well. They all have very similar-ish, like UX, UI, right? You log in, you have your history on the left, you have the chat in the middle, right? And you're basically interfacing with their LLM, their large language model. Think of that as like the brain, right? Because you can come in and ask it anything, right? I'm doing a LinkedIn Live to cover AI tools. What do you think are some cool things I can show my audience about using ChatGPT, right? Let's get real meta here for a second, right? But the idea here is to show you that you can quite literally type in whatever you want, questions, ideas, instructions, and then as you can see here, the AI just starts typing back to you, right? So let's see what it says, because I'm genuinely curious, right? That sounds like a great session, since your audience is likely business professionals, lawyers, and entrepreneurs. Now, it knows this because it has my profile, right? I didn't mention that I'm a lawyer, right? But because I'm logged in and it has some of my chat history, it happens to know that. Here are some cool ways you can showcase ChatGPT. Now I don't even have to do much. Drafting and reviewing legal documents. Show how ChatGPT can help draft documents, client letters, or even summarize legal cases. Generating content, research and summarization. AI as a business consultant, right? Live Q&A or role play. That's what I'm doing right now. Cold outreach and marketing. Tech tools and integration. Prompted. So you can just see here, right? And now I can, would you like help structuring your LinkedIn Live, right? So it's one message, and then it can continue in a continuous conversation, right? So for example, let's say I want to show them, if they're newer to marketing, what could be a good LinkedIn content strategy for a small immigration law firm based in Toronto, right? So again, what's not important is necessarily what I'm typing. What's most important here is that you can quite literally have a conversation about anything. And I'm going to talk about a few different tools, because I'm not saying ChatGPT is necessarily the best or the only one that you should use, right? Keep in mind, I'm on the free plan. You can make a free account and start doing this right away. You can also make a non-free account and not even log in, right? So you don't even have to log in at all if you're worried about, saving information, or, tracing stuff to you or whatever, right? Look at this, LinkedIn content strategy for a small immigration law firm in Toronto. Now, one thing I want to especially highlight is AI, and I'm going to say this at the beginning, and I'm probably going to say this often. AI is a tool. AI is not a replacement for you or entire staff. It is a tool that you and or your staff can use to operate more efficiently. The reason I say that as well is because the output is only as good as the input. So the better your prompts are, the better your messages are, the more specific they are, the better the output, right? What do they say? Garbage in, garbage out. You ask it a stupid question, you're probably going to get a stupid answer, right? That's one of my dad's favorite sayings. Ask a stupid question, you'll get a stupid answer. So anyways, you can ask and do so much stuff with this. What I usually, because I obviously work with a lot of law firms, especially law firms that are newer, they're intimidated, they're not sure. I don't recommend jumping into intense legal stuff, right? You don't even have to use it for legal documents or stuff yet. What I usually recommend using it for, especially at the beginning, is number one, as a business consultant. So ask it for things like strategy, like I just did, right? And content creation, right? So what do most firms still want to do? They want to improve their marketing, improve their sales, get more clients, make more money, right? That kind of stuff. Even if you're a lawyer or an accountant or a consultant or a B2B SaaS, tech founder, you don't have to use this for your in-the-weeds, nitty-gritty type work that you don't trust AI with yet. Use it for simple stuff. Use it for strategy. Use it for generating content on social media that it's not client work, right? It's low-risk stuff like coming up with LinkedIn posts, coming up with blog posts. It's really good at that kind of stuff, right? I'll show you some stuff I've been using it for, right? I'll just go through some, questions I've been asking. Can I sue someone in Ontario Small Claims Court if they only have a U.S. address, right? AI tools for judges. I'm going to be speaking on a panel in front of a bunch of Canadian judges, right? So I asked it some questions about, what are some catchy titles for a session like that? Judicial reviews. I've been doing a little bit more judicial review work, right? So like appealing Canadian immigration refusals. Can you please explain the Canadian judicial review process for immigration applications from start to finish? Please focus on the procedural parts like what documents or forms are needed and any important deadlines. Right? Now, a few things to keep in mind. I'm treating this as a tool, not as a replacement. So I'm not trusting every specific thing that this says. I'm using it as a starting point so I can maybe understand the basics, but then do more fact checking, right? Clicking on the links, doing more fact checking. Sometimes I even do it to just double check and I can see what's wrong, it's what's missing, and I can ask about it, right? Doing a little bit of family law work. So I'm asking it questions like, let's go all the way up here. I'm getting into family law in Ontario, focusing on separation and divorce. What are the key rules, regulations, acts that I'll need to know and rely on, right? So again, it's a starting point, and now I can start looking at all these resources. I'm actually going to show you in a few minutes with Google NotebookLM what I did once I found some of this legislation and rules and stuff. So it can be really great for coming up with initial plans, initial strategies, what you should look into more, right? AI assistant name ideas. What was this about? What's another good name for an AI assistant or bot, right? So just coming up with ideas. Maybe you're like me, you're not very creative, right? I like to think I'm relatively smart at certain things and I'm good at certain things. I am not creative. I'm not good at coming up with names and stuff like that. So I use it for that as well. I'm going to show you I do that a lot with Claude as well in a few seconds here. Content space, what was this? We're creating a prompt for an open. So we actually use AI to help with AI prompts, right? So anyways, what I'm trying to say here is the world is virtually your oyster. Some highlights that you should keep in mind. Number one, garbage in, garbage out. So start getting better at writing really specific, good instructions. Generally speaking, the more specific, the better. Treat this, here's what I tell lawyers, right? Because with my work at Visto, I work with a lot of lawyers, I work with a lot of immigration consultants. Think of this as if you're giving instructions to a summer student. You're not going to say, oh, hey, go draft me a submission letter for express entry and expect that they're going to do it perfectly the first time because you haven't given them enough instructions, right? You might say, hey, go take the submission letter from our last express entry application, create a new copy of it, draft it, copy and paste the client's information, add a paragraph mentioning that the client's work experience was blah, 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 right? You're going to give them, if you're good at giving instructions, you're going to give them very specific step-by-step instructions. Same thing with AI. The better you give it instructions with details, potentially even steps, right? Because now things like AI tools and agents can actually do multi-step stuff. The better it's going to be. And or start broad and then continue the conversation to narrow it down, right? So for example, what's a great LinkedIn strategy? Okay, it spits something out. Now you can say something like, focusing on your first suggestion, can you please, right? So you can continue this and narrow it ongoing, right? To kind of like sculpt what you need to do. So pretty straightforward, right? Check it out. Again, if you go to ChatGPT for the first time, you can even start using it. It already logs me in. But let's pull up incognito mode here. Like if I were to pull up if you were to go to this website for the first time, you'll see you can actually use it for free without logging in if you're afraid about, history and stuff like that. So hopefully that's helpful. Let's move on to the next two tools because they're heavily linked, right? So for example, Claude.ai. What I'm starting to learn is that, number one, there's a lot of different versions now of ChatGPT, right? That's kind of like the first big one, but there's plenty of others. There's Claude, there's Grok, there's Perplexity, I think is the company that owns Claude. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of other ones, is what I'm trying to say. Some of them are better than others at certain things. So for example, I find ChatGPT is really good at research, summarization, analysis, comparisons, stuff like that. I find I still write a lot of my own content. If you follow me on LinkedIn, if you follow me on my Substack, which you should, I put out a lot of content every week. Believe it or not, even though I love AI, I still write most of it myself because I don't think the AI sounds good enough yet. The one that I like the most for writing is Claude, right? So for example, I use ChatGPT, as you can see here, for a lot of research, and summarization and analysis. When I want to write stuff, I use Claude, right? So for example, let's look up some recent chats, right? Please suggest 5 catchy headlines for the following email newsletter, right? So if you don't already, which you're a fool if you don't, you should be on my Substack. I send like 2 to 3 emails a week. Here, I'll put it in I'll put the link in the comments. I send 2 to 3 emails a week talking about a whole bunch of things, business, tech, law, AI, running Visto, running a tech company, running law firms, all that kind of stuff. I love writing these articles. I hate coming up with the headlines, right? That's where I kind of suck. So here's what I do. I go into Claude. If I can't come up, usually I try to come up with a headline first myself. If I can't, I go into Claude and I say, please suggest 5 catchy headlines for the following email newsletter. And I copy and paste my newsletter in. So I write the newsletter, I copy and paste it in, and then Claude comes up with suggestions for headlines, right? I could ask it for more, I could ask it for less, I could ask it to, hey, please tweak the second one, right? Or for example, I like Claude for, when I do want to draft stuff, then I use Claude because I think it's the most natural sounding. I still find ChatGPT a little bit robotic. I don't love the text output. So for example, I want to create a new blog post talking about the recent express entry draw. It was on February 15th and the score requirement was 510. Please take the post below and rewrite it for this updated recent draw with some thoughts on it using my own language, right? So I give it some of my previous text that I've written, and it'll write me a new version of it, as an example. Any other good ones? Can you please, Can you please rewrite the following blog post? Use as much of the original text, language, grammar, etc. as possible, but fix spelling and grammar mistakes and make it flow a little bit better, right? So again, I drafted an email. I'm too lazy, busy, tired to edit it. So I just throw it into Claude and it rewrites it. But I tell it, in this case, to please use my language, right? Because number one, I want it to sound like me. And number two, I've already done a lot of the heavy lifting. I just don't really want to do the editing, right? So I ask AI to do it. And then I still do a final read over right before I post it. So anyways, very similar to OpenAI, right? Claude and ChatGPT are almost the same, especially from like a B2C, like a consumer point of view. You can use them both for free. I use them both for free. I don't have the paid account. So you can see here, free plan. And you can see here, I'm on the free plan, right? But I do recommend looking into the paid plans because there are a lot of interesting extra features you can use, right? So more messaging, you can see standard and advanced voice mode, the ability to use different models, creating custom GPTs, which I'm probably not going to talk about in this session. Maybe I'll do it on another video. But a custom GPT, which you can do in OpenAI, and then I think Claude also has the ability. Where is it here? Upgrade plan. I think you can also build custom. So here, under Claude's Pro plan, more usage, organized documents and chats with projects. So I think custom GPTs are equivalent to projects, where you can basically create custom models, right? So instead of just having a general conversation, you can have a conversation with an LLM that's been trained on specific things, right? So you could build a custom project or a custom GPT that's trained on the IRPA or the IRPR, right? So you can like upload specific documents and train it on it and stuff like that. So again, I'll probably do that in a future video, a little bit more advanced for the beginners that are here. But I would say these are borderline interchangeable, right? There's other options, DeepSeek and, et cetera, et cetera. I like ChatGPT for research and summarization and analysis, and I like Claude for writing. Grok is another option. So if you're a Twitter user, if you like X, if you like Elon, or you just want to evaluate a different option, I think you have to be a premium user on Twitter or X, whatever the heck you want to call it. But again, similar thing, right? So very similar UX, UI, it's a chat, et cetera, right? Not going to go into much detail here. I was trying to use it for, transcribing, video creation, logo design, blah, blah, blah. And it's good. I like Grok. So like I said, these three are like almost interchangeable. Do whatever you want. Try them out. So for example, one thing you might do is you're like, hey, let's say I want to start posting on LinkedIn. I'm going to come up with a prompt, and it's going to be generate a LinkedIn post about A, B, and C, and make sure it's this many paragraphs and blah, blah, blah. And copy and paste that prompt into all three and see which one you like the most. And then, so test them a little bit, see which one you like the most, and then you'll know which one you might want to use going forward. All right, so that's kind of like the first major topic I wanted to cover, which is in general, GPTs, right? So the AI that you can kind of interface with conversationally, like these three here. Now, the next tool I want to talk about is really good for research. Similar-ish to like how you could build a custom GPT, but I find it really useful for research. And it's called NotebookLM. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's from Google, right? So I think it uses the Gemini LLM, I think. And what this allows you to do is create your own custom databases of sources and then do a whole bunch of really cool stuff. So for example, I'll show you the one that I've done first. Family, I called it very creatively, I know, the Family Law Bot. Now, what does this allow you to do? When you click in, or for example, if you create a brand new one, right, you can give it a name and it kind of looks like this. You're going to focus at first on the left side where you can add sources. So this is basically where you can add a whole bunch of different types of content that you think of as your database, right? This is going to be your custom database. And the cool thing is you can upload so many different types of content, right? You can drag and drop PDFs, TXTs, markdown files, or even audio MP3s. You can upload directly from Google Drive if you're a G Suite user, so Google Docs, Google Slides. You can just upload a link from a website or a YouTube video, or you can even just copy and paste text, right? Maybe you have a document, you just want to copy and paste the text, or you want to write something or whatever. And when you do this, it becomes a source that you can then ask in the chat questions about, right? So for example, I've been getting more into family law. And I don't know, well, I'm starting to know pretty quickly, but I didn't know where to start in terms of research and writing, right? So I asked OpenAI, hey, what are the key rules, regulations, legislations, etc. that I should know about? And then I started adding them all into what I call, again, very creatively, the family law bot. So for example, I have the bar materials, the family law bar materials from 2024, parenting guide, Child Support Guidelines, Canada Evidence Act, Child and Family Services Act. I'm not going to go through every one, right? Divorce Act, all these acts, right? This is like thousands and thousands of pages worth of content. And now I can ask it questions. So for example, maybe a situation comes up with a client or a prospective client and they have a question like, hey, you know, I'm separating and I want to know how the, you know, matrimonial home is dealt with, right? I can just come in here. This is obviously a very basic question if you're a family law expert, but just run with me here. How is the matrimonial home dealt with in a divorce in Ontario, right? Whatever. This is obviously like a super basic, super vague question. I just want to show you how it works, because just like now on all these other AI tools I showed you, Grok, Claude, and ChatGPT, same functionality. I ask it a question, it answers the question, and highlights which sources it's pulling this information from. Right? So in Ontario, the treatment of the matrimonial home in a divorce is governed by Part 1 and Part 2 of the Family Law Act. And now if I hover over this number 1, it'll actually show me the source. So here's the source, 2024 bar materials in this case. And here's the text that it's relying on to provide me with this information. It is included in net family property under Part 2, but also has its own special considerations under Part 2. Under Part 1 and then Part 2. General principles. Every property in which a blah, 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 right? I'm not going to bore you with all the information here. But you can see, now I have all this super useful information, and maybe most importantly, I can see the source that it's coming from. Because again, we're using this as a tool. We're not using this as a replacement. I'm still going to go in and double check and triple check these specific sources to make sure that this is actually right. I'm not just going to blindly trust or copy and paste information from AI. I'm going to use it as a starting point to point me in some of the right directions that I might want to start looking in. Right? And then I can continue the conversation. Okay, in this case, my clients are blah, 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 and they want a blue, blue, blue. What do you think about this? Right? So number 1 is you can just start asking it questions, right, in the chat. The other thing here is if you look on the right, you can do a whole bunch of really cool stuff. So for example, you can create a study guide, right? You can create an FAQ, right? A briefing doc. I don't know what that is. Maybe like a summary. And a timeline. So for example, maybe you want to upload your website, right? So let's go to a new example, right? Let me try this actually. I've never even done this. I'm going to upload our website, right? So obviously Visto is an immigration platform that we sell to Canadian immigration firms, right? So I'm going to upload this as a website link. And now it's going to train, and you're going to see when it's done, there's going to be a little check, right? And I could start asking questions, right? How much does the Visto solo plan cost, right? And based on the information, oh no, wait, hold on. Okay, I guess I'd have to include all the different websites. So because the pricing's not on our home page, I'd have to also add the other page. So I'm going to add this as a source as well. And maybe let's do About Us. Right? I'll just do a really quick example here. But like what I can do is I can add the important websites, the web pages from my website. Let me try asking it. Now it should be able to answer. But let's just double check. There we go. The Visto Solo plan costs $199 per month, right? So pretty cool. Now, maybe I want to create an FAQ for, to add to my website. We don't have an FAQ on our website, right? Maybe I want one. I can come into this tool and just click FAQ, and it's going to generate an FAQ. That's pretty nuts, right? And then obviously, again, I'm going to, look at this. What is Visto and who is it for? What are the key features of the Visto.ai platform? How does Visto use AI to automate the Oh my god. What are the pricing plans? This is like pretty legit. How does Visto.ai ensure the security of client data? Oh my god. So I just clicked a button and it just generated this for me, right? I'm just going to delete it because maybe I should use it. I could create a study guide. Maybe you're a student right now, or maybe you're studying for the bar exam or some other, maybe you're taking the immigration consultant course. You could upload a whole bunch of content and click create a study guide, and it'll create a study guide that you can use based on all that information, right? Timeline, maybe you're working with like dates or something, right? So anyways, this part is really cool too. You may have seen this online. You can click to generate a podcast conversation between two hosts, right? So you can click a button and it's going to generate like a 15-20 minute conversation between two AI hosts talking about this content, which is pretty cool. I recommend giving it a try. So anyways, that is it. NotebookLM. I highly recommend it. Just Google NotebookLM, especially if you're Googling it. It'll be the first thing that comes up because it's a Google product, right? So anyways, hopefully you find that helpful. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything so far, by all means, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'm going to move a little bit quicker now because it's already half an hour and I need to be out within about 10 to 15 minutes. So the last few tools I want to highlight, and these are arguably getting even cooler, so maybe I should have started the other way, but I wanted to start with the basics first, like the GPTs. So the next few tools, I'm going to go through a little bit quicker. Now keep in mind, I'm only showing you tools that I've used, right? This is not some affiliate scheme. I don't own any of these. I wish I did. I don't own anything in any of these companies, right? The next tool I want to highlight is called Opus Pro. Opus.pro is, I think, the website. This is a great tool if you, like me, create a lot of video content and or have a podcast. Because what you can do here is you can basically copy and paste a link, like a YouTube link, and it will automatically generate short clips that you can edit and post, right? So for example, we've all seen them, right? You're all on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Reels or whatever the heck it is, right? Videos even becoming more popular on LinkedIn now. And what you could do is, like me or like us, you could record a YouTube video, or you could record any, it doesn't even have to be on YouTube, you could record a video. So for example, I host the Canadian Immigration Pros podcast, and I also host the Solopreneur Grind podcast as well, right? But let's do an example here with Visto. So I'll take the most recent Visto podcast episode that I did. Obviously, if you don't listen to this podcast already, you should. And I'm going to just copy the link, right? Copy the link, and I'm going to paste it. And keep in mind, this is a 39-minute video. And now what it's going to do automatically is generate, and you can set some settings here, is it's going to generate short clips for me automatically that I can review, edit, and post, right? So you can see ETA about 10 minutes, so it's going to take about 10 minutes. So I won't show you that here. I'll do that myself after. But here's an example of the latest episode of the Solopreneur Grind podcast, where this is done with AI. It generates short clips. In my case, I set it to between 30 and 60 seconds. It gives them each a score, so it tells you like how good it thinks it is. And then what you can do is you can watch it, right? So I just click play, and you can watch it.
Journey, bits and pieces.
And then you can schedule it right away if you want, or you can click in to edit, right? So for example, maybe you want to edit, I don't know. You can edit a whole bunch of stuff, right? You can add music, you can drag stuff around, right? So in this case, hey, I want this to be me, so I click that. I can add emojis, I can add, a whole bunch of stuff you can see along the left here, right? Music, B-roll, voiceovers, whatever you want. I'm just going to click leave, and then you can schedule them with a few more clicks, right? So for example, I can click schedule, I can click the multiple different platforms, you can see it auto-generates a description with text and stuff like that, and I can click publish now, or I can schedule. So this is super powerful, especially if you're already recording podcasts, especially video podcasts, because within about 10 minutes, you can take a podcast and let's see if it magically, I don't think it would be done already. Yeah, no, it's still 20% of the way done. But it'll generate these short clips, and I can very easily just, repurpose them and post them. Highly recommend this. There's competitors, right? Everything I'm showing you, there's competitors, so check them out. These are just the ones that I've used. Make.com, I'll show you really quickly. This is kind of like a Zapier type tool where you can build and connect a lot of these tools together, right? So for example, this is a flow where anytime I sent out a new blog post, I wanted to create an X post about it, right? So basically what this picture means, and you have to hook it all up manually, it's pretty easy, right? So I had to hook up my Google account, my OpenAI account, and my X account. They make it really easy. But you can hook them up and say, okay, anytime Josh adds a new blog post to the Google Sheet, OpenAI is going to take it and summarize it. And then OpenAI is going to come up with a Twitter headline and text, and then it's going to post it on Twitter for me automatically. Right? That's basically what this does. There's a lot more to it. I would say Make and Zapier are a little bit more advanced. I would get familiar with these tools and actually creating the output yourself first, before diving into a tool like Make, where you can tie a bunch of these pieces together. The other thing to keep in mind is now some of these tools are basically offering agents where you don't need this, because there's like multi-step workflows, right? So for example, pretty soon a lot of these tools, and OpenAI I know already has some tools like this, where you can give it multi-step instructions anyways. Right? So, hey, go search the web for the recent Canadian immigration news, draft me a post about the top 3 articles, send me an email about them, and then take the, if I click yes, then post the second one for me on LinkedIn, right? So again, a lot of what we talked about is like one step. I have to give it an input, and then I receive the output, and I do whatever I want with it. We're getting into the age of multi-step AI processes as well. The last thing I want to show you quickly is Descript. So again, this is very much related to what I do with Opus, and it's very much related to podcasting and video. What Descript allows you to do is very easily transcribe, edit, and post podcasts. This can be just the audio, it can be audio and video. You can see here's the most recent episode of the Canadian Immigration Pros podcast, which I highly recommend giving a listen to. I had a great guest, Clinton Green. And basically what happens is I can record this video, throw it up into Descript, and now it does a whole bunch of stuff, right? So number 1, it transcribes the whole thing. Number 2, I can edit, I can move stuff around, etc., etc. It has what they call the Underlord, which is kind of like the AI assistant. You can click a button and it improves the sound, so it gives it like studio sound quality. You can remove filler words, shorten word gaps, right? So you can say, hey, anytime there's a gap of more than 2 or 3 or 6 seconds, just remove it. Just shorten it. You can say anytime there's a filler word, like, look at this, it tracks all the filler words. Okay, I want to remove every time one of us says, I just want you to delete it. And it'll just delete all of the times that somebody says, or whatever you want, right? You can also go through the episode and delete sections just by highlighting the text, right? So, oh, Josh said this thing here and it sounded stupid or it's super embarrassing. I can just highlight it and click delete. I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to delete it. But I can click delete and it'll remove that part of the episode, right? Way more stuff you can do as well. You can add captions. You can add, shapes and titles and, background music and stock images and blah, blah, blah. Very powerful. And then all from here, I can publish to YouTube, I can download it, you can see I can publish to other places, I can just export it as a file, right? Or in my case as well, I can export just the audio so I can post it as a podcast, because this is both a YouTube video and also an audio podcast, and I can do it all from one place. So this is more of like a, I would say, practical AI use case of where I'm applying AI to a different workflow of something that I'm already doing, and it's helping me save time. I'm not an editor, right? I don't want to spend hours editing stuff and making it look pretty and blah, 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 right? So I just use AI to do it for me. So anyways, extremely helpful. Again, I wish I had an affiliation with this company because I love it and I promote it a lot. But the last thing too I'll say to keep in mind is, use these as tools, or use these to start doing things that you never did before. Maybe you've been wanting to start that podcast, but you're like, it just takes so much time and I got to record it, I got to edit it, or I got to pay an editor, blah, blah. Now, you don't have to anymore. You can record something as simply as turning the camera on, hitting record, throwing it into a tool like Descript, edit it quickly, post it, throw it into a tool like Opus, chop up little clips, spread it out. So now with these tools, you can get way more done in half the time or less, or, a tenth of the cost, a tenth of the time, a tenth of the staff, etc., etc. So anyways, those are the key tools that I wanted to highlight, right? As a quick summary, we talked about ChatGPT, we talked about Claude, we talked about Grok as kind of like 3 pretty good GPTs. We talked about Google NotebookLM as a really good kind of like research tool where you can build your own kind of like database and use it to do a whole bunch of stuff. Opus.Pro for chopping up long form videos, Descript for recording, editing, and posting longer form videos or podcasts, and Make.com to potentially tie a bunch of these pieces together. So anyways, that is going to be it for me. I'll pause for a minute or two for questions. And if we do have, I see we have a couple people tuning in who've kind of stuck around on LinkedIn for a while, which is awesome. If you have any questions or any feedback, please let me know on LinkedIn in the comments, or on YouTube if you're watching this after the fact in the comments. Like I said, this is not the usual Visto show. Did you find this helpful? Did you enjoy it? What parts did you like? What parts would you like me to do more of? Do you want me to start covering more in-depth AI tools or functionalities, right? We didn't even talk about custom GPT. Well, we talked a little bit about custom GPTs, the OpenAI assistant, whole bunch of other stuff that we could talk about. So anyways, let me know if you have any thoughts or feedback, especially, so I know what to cover in future episodes. Thanks again if you tuned in live or are watching after the fact on LinkedIn. Really appreciate it. Make sure to like, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up. Really helps kind of promote the video in the algorithm. If you're watching on YouTube, if you could make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you can make sure to see all the future Visto shows and give the video a like. Again, helps us to promote the channel and get a little bit more exposure. So anyways, thank you again. Really appreciate it to all of you folks who tuned in. Have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend if you're watching this on a Friday. And I will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.